Okay. Oh, look at this. And here we go.
Okay. All
I'll
right.
start all over again. Okay. So we're going to get started just to kind of honor time. Brent is busy. He's in transit here. So I want to take a minute. So I'm going to try to do a quick introduction. I'm also letting people in. So for those who don't know me, I'm Lisa Berman. I'm a life coach, and I host about a monthly cup of gratitude where I invite guests in this format where we chat. This is the first time I've ever done it in person, so this is kind of cool. So we typically talk gratitude practices and different things like that. But Brent, a friend of mine from college, had a fun project this summer. And so we kind of were like, oh, yeah, this would be kind of a fun cup of gratitude conversation. So I just want to welcome everybody here. And I want to welcome Brent. And so I think that if can you just talk about how your Positive Pedicab Project started? I mean, right? Doesn't that sound like something gratitude-y? Like I was like,
It's gratitude.
it ties in here, right? So Brent, if you would just take a couple minutes to, oh wait. So Brent works at UNH. That's how we met. He is a professor there doing outdoor education. Do you want to expand on that at all?
Well, one thing I feel that I see we're getting some other people coming in. At one point, I was like, every one of the people here I've been on the dance floor with in college.
Okay, except for my mother, your mother, and Patty. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so anyways,
so I just say our these friendships go back quite a few years.
they do.
But yeah, so kind of how this started, I guess, in a couple different ways. One, I was a pedicab operator in Portsmouth in the '80s, along with some of Keith Weston, who was another fraternity brother, and we and I did it for a short while, like 6 weeks between sort of UNH and working at a camp for the summer, and I really enjoyed it, and I met a lot of different people, and it was fun, but I hated the hustle of it. And how it would work is that I'd rent a pedicab for $50, and then I would spend my whole night trying to earn back that $50. And I got more than that, and it was so there's a lot of pressure, I guess, every night, not to lose money, maybe try to hopefully make some money. And I didn't really like that part of it, but I love giving people rides. And so that's kind of like one part of the story.
One piece of it, yeah.
So that's kind of in the back of my mind. And then I had started in my teaching, I started teaching about this theory of reciprocity. And so there's a theorist who believes that people and humans are kind of hardwired to reciprocate kindness. That's something that a lot of businesses take advantage of, because and the way they take advantage of it is offering, like, you go to the store and they offer you a free food or something like that. Like you go to BJ's and they offer you, like, here, have this, it's free, and you eat it, and you kind of think like, oh, I know they're trying to manipulate me, and they're trying to get me to buy this. And however you think, the data shows that sales of that product will increase by 30%. Like the people like buy that because, and the belief is because we feel this reciprocity, like someone did a kindness, we feel like we have to. So anyway, I that's really kind of where this started. I thought the pedicab is such a great way to study reciprocity, because I could, one, give free rides, and I thought, like, everyone's going to want a free ride, so I could give something to this, and then really what I've been observing is like how people deal with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, will people feel compelled to try to reciprocate, or do people, which might prove the reciprocity principle, or are people like, hey, this is great, thanks, and they just take the ride, and which would disprove the reciprocity. And then I've been kind of playing with different status roles, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes I play, sometimes I very easily play Brent, his down on his luck 50-something-year-old guy who is trying to give out free rides to people and eke out a living. And then sometimes I'm a college professor doing research, or and so there's those are kind of very different,
Very different, right?
like kind of ways that people might perceive me and my role, and I kind of been manipulating the way I dress. I've been manipulating like different riders and things like that, and trying to make observations. But really, kind of what sort of started me on this is like, how can that reciprocity, if true, be used for good rather than try to get people to manipulate people into buying more? Could we manipulate people into maybe doing other acts of
Giving
kindness,
more?
giving more? Yeah. So that's really kind of
Kind of
the start of this.
how that started. So you have been all summer long pedaling away up in Portsmouth, right? And poor Beth has had her weekends all by herself because
Pedicab widow.
Beth has been up there giving rides. And I know Jay and we took a ride. We had a wonderful tour of Portsmouth, learned all kinds of history, and Jay and Brent, of course, talked history about other areas. And so it was just a fun, really a fun way to spend the afternoon, and lots of good laughs. Anyways, so I'm kind of curious because we were talking earlier about that reciprocity and kind of some of the different observations you've had. And so what's one of the observations that kind of struck you the most in terms of that reciprocity?
Yeah. Well, this has really been, I'd say, exploratory research.
Oh, thank you. Yep.
The where I really thought like I was trying to sort of prove or disprove reciprocity, and I thought one of the nuances to it I wanted to that was like how status integrated in that. But and I think that there's some good stuff that came out of that. But what really has fascinated me is that what happened is that I really started seeing a lot of people who would say, I cannot take a pedicab ride because I could never have someone help me basically in that way. I feel too guilty. And I have people get on and they're like, I feel terrible. Like today, one of my friends, Julie Clemens, got on and she's just like, this is so painful to ride on this, watching you labor in front of me, and I said, really, like, what would make it better? And she goes, if I was riding, like, I want to pedal. And I was like, well, that kind of makes sense. I think there's people like that, right?
Yeah.
And so I started thinking about maybe there's this like kind of like reciprocity sort of intelligence. And so I think we have what I've been observing, that there's people who find it really hard to accept gifts from people.
Yeah.
And that they either feel guilty or they feel like they don't want to do that, or they don't want to maybe be in that position of owing someone something or whatever that is.
Right.
I think that they miss out a little bit on opportunities in the world, right?
Kind of the opportunity for connection.
Exactly.
That opportunity for connection.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think that that's a pretty large part of people I've interacted with who just I can't take a ride,
and you also ran into it partially because of people's hesitance to just engage, kind of, just suspicious about things, I guess. Yes.
And then I think if you look at the other end of the spectrum, I think there's people who would like really take advantage of the situation, and I thought that was so interesting. And in a way, I'm like, there's I don't want to out anyone, but let's just say I would ride for like 90 minutes, you know what I mean? Like just like all up and down Pierce Island and all these like hills and stuff like that, and people would just be like, I can't believe this is free. Awesome, and it's free.
Right.
But I think for I had the feeling of like almost like they were kind of treating me like, what a stupid guy, all right, if you want to be an idiot, I'm here to take advantage. And so I think for those people, like we don't want to, we miss that reciprocal relationship because we don't want to give to them, right? We have to protect ourselves from being taken advantage of. So, and I think that's a smaller proportion, but I feel like, I've just been thinking about how this idea, and I think of like gift giving, right?
Right.
That when you to kind of interact and have these sort of a good relationship, you have to have a good kind of intelligence about the reciprocal relationship.
Right.
And so what I mean by gift giving is like my niece or nephew gives me, I don't know, a really ugly tie, I don't go like, oh, I'll never use this. I say, oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. I'm so glad
So
you thought of
thoughtful.
me. And
Yes.
and I try to accept that gift in a really gracious way. And that helps them to feel good about gift giving. And that
Mhm.
helps them to want to do that more, right? So in a similar way, I think like when it comes to these kindnesses that are offered to us, it's we gotta almost think of them as like gifts that are our way. And how can we sort of try to accept those gifts
Accept
in a
those
gracious
gifts.
way, and then like we would like I don't know, a 6-year-old's art project. I don't know.
Right,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and because I think that I guess if anything I'm learning on this, I think that the what I wish in all this, you know what I mean? I've sort of felt like I want to talk about reciprocity, but I feel like almost like we need to be better if we want to have connections, we need to be better accepting from other people.
Accepting help, accepting gifts,
Accepting gifts, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, right, because that's a huge part of the reciprocity.
And I'm not that great at it either, So I think if you're really, a lot of us are really giving people, and we want to give, and I think that that's almost the easier part. I think that
Easier to give than it
it's
is
easier to find givers than it is to find gracious receivers.
gracious receivers. Yeah.
I don't know. That's my theory right now, and so that's kind of where maybe I would encourage people. We want more givers. We have to have more gracious receivers.
More gracious receivers. Yes. And so that's a challenge for you to be a gracious receiver?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, well, at times, I mean, I try to think about that, you know what I mean? And I try to like, be aware, like, oh, this is a situation where I should be accepting this, and this is, and
Right.
yeah. But I guess I'm just thinking that like we want more. I guess I sort of went out like I want to inspire people to give more gifts in the world. You know what I mean? I want to start like pay it forward
And that
campaigns.
was kind of
And that was
part
kind
of
of my
the
impetus.
mission
Yeah.
behind that was that the pay it forward notion.
But I guess what I'm saying is that I think that the pinch point, the thing that's stopping this maybe is that like, and so I'll go through Portsmouth with my petty, and I will we kind of have with the other pedicab drivers, we ask people, would you like a free pedicab ride, sponsored by, a certain sponsor that's sponsored, and then they'll say, oh no, I could never do that. And I have a little like one of those like counters, for like an umpire. Click, 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 and then
No,
it's kind of
no.
conscious, like how many people do you have to will say no before there's a pedicab ride, and then we kind of keep this ratio.
So what was the ratio?
What do you think?
I think you had to get a lot of no's before you got
Yeah,
yes.
it sort of varies a little bit by day.
Yeah.
I think the average is about 17 to 1. 17 no's to 1 ride. But yesterday I got into the 90s, and I was like, it's going to 100, but then 2 people got on, and so I thought I was gonna get my first, but yeah, but I think like 17 to 1 averages out,
Right.
and it's hard to sort of do that too. It's and there's other psychological things in play here too, like, well, up to like one story that we know like helping behavior is oftentimes there's kind of a famous experiment that was I think this was done in early 80s, maybe late 70s, where basically what it is, a person pretended to be hurt outside of a concert.
Yeah.
Right. And as people exited the concert, they would be, oh, help me, and then it's just see like, who would stop.
Right.
And what we know from that is that if the very first people stop, right,
Yes.
then there will be hundreds of people willing to help.
Ah.
But if the very first people kind of walk by,
Then
no one stops, because we have this sort of perception like someone ahead of us made a judgment not to help, and that kind of just causes a little bit of like resistance in us, like, oh, well, I wonder why,
Yeah.
why everyone else passed,
Yeah.
So I see that with a pedicab, like in Prescott Park, the play lets out, and I'm like, hey, and if I don't get a ride right away, it's like the whole place empties, and it's like fascinating, right?
Yeah.
And so these little, and I really think that these little things that can make a big difference, right? Little acts, just little changes that we are very sensitive, and we're kind of like, I think naturally, let's say, you might think of it as intuition, but I think we're just so sensitive, not even realizing, how we're kind of managing risk in the world and how we judge that. And And
I
sometimes
love
they're wrong.
that, right? Managing risk, right?
Yeah.
What about just kind of even with the people who rode with you? I want to try to find ways to connect it with gratitude because we are here a little bit to talk,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
really to talk about the Pedicab project. But with the people who rode, were there different ways of people kind of showing their gratitude or just kind of how they presented? I'm just kind of
Yeah, yeah.
curious
Well,
if
one
there
of the
was.
things that happens is I'll say, you know, kind of how the experiment where, I'll end the ride. What's typical is people like, wow, thank you. They start reaching in their pocket, and I say,
Right,
the ride's for free,
right,
and they go, no, 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 I can't do that. And then I'll
right.
say something like, I dare you to not pay me. Like, I challenge you not to do this. And people like can't do it. They go, no, 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 I'm gonna pay,
Yeah,
which I think supports this idea of reciprocity. Like people are
right,
just, I
right,
have to do
right,
something
right,
with it.
right,
So
right.
so I think that's I think that's been kind of interesting. But probably my favorite stories are people who kind of get into it and they're like, one of my some if you've kind of been following my Facebook page, I've had a couple times where people are they wanna they're like, oh, I love this, you know what I mean? And I say, well, let's sing for other people or let's do other kindnesses. Like, what can we do? And I had these two women in particular who just uh kind of my age, and they were visiting, and they got a hold of I have a little Bluetooth speaker. They got a hold of it with their phone, and they started playing these like classic rock songs and just singing away. And so I'm going around Portsmouth, they're just belting out, Aretha Franklin or whatever. And so that as that started, I would like people would be walking on the street, and I would kind of pull over to them, and they
Yeah,
would be singing, and then the people would kind of dance and sing and laugh, and then we would move on, and we'd go by the goat or something like that, and the
yeah,
people on the outside of the goat would all, yeah, they're coming by
yeah,
again, and it just became this thing where we kept going around. But what's fascinating about it is that do this for hours, right? All hours, and they would get out and dance at some point, and they get back in, and I was just having so much fun. But the part that surprised me is that when those people we walk by in the street who kind of dance with us or something like that, they would if we saw them like 40 minutes later, they were like long lost relatives, like, oh, they would run up and they would give hugs, and they would all do this, recreate this
right,
thing
right,
again.
right.
And I was just that was really interesting that they kind of like they shared a
That
moment that
moment
they
of
had
just,
fun, and then they like saw that person again, like, and they were like, so I don't know what that is. If
yeah.
that's just like a gratitude of like, I'm
I
so,
think that the gratitude and that connection, I mean, I
yeah,
think
yeah,
you're right. People are starving for connection, and that's just such a fun, spontaneous way of connecting with people that
yeah.
you don't know, that then it, yeah.
Can you imagine having Leanne Fenner like going around and her singing? I mean, this would just be awesome.
There we go, Ian. Oh,
Yeah.
so yeah,
So yeah, so those are really, really some of the real highlights and
the
fun nights of,
highlights.
yeah. And last night I'd say that I had a similar experience, except it was like, I don't know, probably like three 19-year-olds, and they
Yeah.
were playing Taylor Swift music, which I don't know, but I guess that they were singing along, and it was really funny because I'm just like silently like, I have no idea what these songs are, but
Right, right.
but it was really and I think appreciated. I think people love to see people having fun.
Love to have, yeah, yeah. I was seeing what got typed into the box. Like we would all have our own playlist, but there's a handful of us who would have similar songs on that playlist. But does anybody have any questions or kind of any thoughts on oh Leanne, your
Oh, Leanne, you did the
RAs.
math. Ouch.
I think we were all RAs at the same time, so because I know we were at the
Yep.
same time. So anyways, does anybody have any questions or thoughts or observations, curiosities, anything that they want to ask? Go ahead, Leanne. Go ahead.
I don't know. My internet might be unstable. I don't know if you
We
can
can
hear
hear
me.
you fine. Yeah.
But I want, Oh, okay, great. Well, I was out, my sister has a friend who's a Navajo Indian out west, and I remember I visited her and she gave me her brother who had died, Stetson cowboy hat. And I remember going back home and being like, I gotta send Tanya something. And my sister and my mom said, no, 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 that's not how their culture is. You don't, it's not reciprocal. You don't have to do, like, don't do that. Like, it's a one way. And that same kind of thing you're saying, like, pass it on down the road, but you don't, it's not like, oh, I better send her a present, thank her
Right,
for
not
that. So
It's not the expecting.
just kind of thinking of that
Yeah.
same thing of like just taking it in
Mhm.
and saying thank you. And so that I think of that, I see that hat upstairs in my costume closet, and I'm always like, I never gave her anything back. But then I go,
Ah.
you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to.
And then that's where the gratitude though comes in, right? Kind of that being grateful. There you go.
Mhm.
Give nothing thereof.
Expecting thereof.
Yes.
Yeah, so everybody's sharing, and this is a great, is our fraternity motto. You know, and it's give expecting nothing thereof, and it's just so beautiful, you know,
Mhm.
just a really clean.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think about that a lot, you know.
You think about that a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
So
Those are
do you think that that was another kind of maybe a driver behind kind of how you operate and kind of this project, and maybe there's other pieces? Do you
Well,
think that that's
of that motto or the
that model?
well, I think I was very lucky to be in a great fraternity with some great people, some great others, and and that's really important because I'm surrounded by some really, I don't know, inspirational people. And I think one of the hard parts about this is that there are a number of people who think this is crazy. Like, what? You know, like, I don't get it. Like, just a lot of resistance, you know?
Yeah.
And it can kind of convince you that, oh, that's too weird, or I am crazy, or, you know, and so it was nice to have some supporters along the way. I think I'm around some really generous people in my life, you know,
Yeah.
that really helps,
That helps.
you know, to
Yeah.
know, like, hey, wait a minute, you know, like, look
Right.
at these other models, role models I have,
Right.
and give and expecting nothing thereof, I guess, is MJ is saying. It's like, I see
Right.
that a lot. I see it a lot with
Well,
my
and I
fraternity
think
brothers, and I see it a lot with my friends, you know.
yeah.
I guess friends and fraternity brothers kind of mixes in, but you know what I mean? But we have, you know, we both are sitting underneath the same picture of
Yeah.
Randy Pierce in our offices.
Right.
And yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah. And I had a thought. Wait a minute. So you're talking about a lot of people.
I have another story I could tell if you want.
Okay, you can tell another story.
Because this has just happened in the last few days,
Okay, yeah.
and I'm sort of fascinated about.
And if I come up with my thought, I'll write it down.
So one of the things I've been trying to do is break even on this petty, you
Right.
know, and by getting sponsorship and asking people to support, and it's and I broke even, you know, so that happened.
That's good, good, good.
And so,
Yeah.
and then with the extra money, I sort of took it. And what I've been doing is I've been going around to ice cream shops and coffee shops, and I've been trying to start pay it forward campaigns by, you know, putting money down and saying,
Beautiful. Yeah.
all right, this is the next person I'd like you to buy a coffee for. And then I would sort of sit in the coffee shop and observe, and it's been a lot of fun. But one of the things that has surprised me about that is um, how the more efficient I would say the coffee shop is, the more difficult it is to insert a pay forward campaign or that connection into the coffee shop.
Oh,
That makes
interesting.
sense. So one
Yeah.
coffee shop, and I'll name them because it's very positive, like the Stroll Cafe.
Oh, right, because when we talked today, you were there.
I was there. They're big supporters of the project. They've been, you know, sponsored a number of days of riding, and it's a really lovely cafe in Portsmouth. And I go in there and I say, here's the want to buy coffee for the next person, you know,
Right.
and then we see how far it gets paid forward. And yesterday it went 6 people, and then someone said, I really need this coffee, you know, and so they took it, and then I bought another one, and then that one went for until and for 4.5 hours. That everyone just paid it forward. I'm gonna pay the next one, I'll pay the next one, I'll pay the next one. to the point where I
Yeah.
came in at their closing, like, I guess you get a Danish if you want to. I don't know. You want to you pay for it, and I'm like, this is perfect. Like
Yeah.
And so I just think of like that, how that little, I had this sort of
Mhm.
motto, like little acts of kindness can make a big difference. But
Right,
but
right.
just I think that might be nice to just be if someone is offering you a gift. When you
Right.
go to a coffee shop.
Yeah.
I went to another coffee shop, and it was very busy, and and the idea of like trying to do pay it forward just is like, no, that's just not working in our system. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
Our cash register isn't set up that way. Our they're like, you have to buy a gift card to do that, and then
Right.
we can take off the gift card. But and then I like
Yeah.
went back in, like, is a gift card, does it work? And they were like, I think so. I don't know, like, you know what I mean? And I think it's just and
Hmm.
so I thought that like that's an interesting part of this, where
Hmm.
structurally to do
Yeah.
kindness can be difficult,
Right.
and sometimes just the way people organize efficiency, sometimes
Loses-
efficiency, we lose the possibility of those connections,
Those- Yeah.
and I think we all want to go to a coffee shop where everyone knows your name,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, that is, I'm trying to think about those maybe get in the way.
Right.
Kindness, maybe.
Yeah. Did somebody have a question? No. Okay. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts on this?
How much longer are you doing this? Because I think I got to come to Portsmouth. Yeah.
Well, I have good news and bad news.
Okay.
So, the bad news first is that I sold my pedicab today.
Oh,
I sold
Yeah.
I sold both of them, and that's part of like I'm going back on contract at UNH, and just and it's been a lot of work, and I know I can't give it the time, but
Yeah.
I sold one pedicab to a local restaurant, and they want to do free rides for the restaurant, and so they're committed to the campaign.
Cool.
And then
very nice.
other person,
Restaurant?
yeah, so that's
Yeah.
the press room,
Oh,
and
excellent.
and so they plan to do like ticket giveaways, and they're kind of gonna take this sort of pedicab idea further. And then someone who's been working with me, Rob Tourville, is a great guy, and he I was sort of saying like, I got to shut this down, and he's like, I'll do it. I would like to keep going. And so what's really nice is that Rob is I'm kind of moving some of the he bought the pedicab today, and now we're kind of going to move it over towards him, and I'm going to bike for him now occasionally. But the hope is to continue the sponsorship, local businesses, and people have been the sponsors have been wonderful and really happy, really up for doing it again. And and so that's been really, really wonderful. So I'm hoping that this idea of free rides in Portsmouth will continue, and
Paying it forward.
and we'll try to inspire some more pay it forward campaigns, and
Yeah.
But for me, I'm
Gonna
go
get
back
back to the
Gonna
kids.
do- Yeah.
go back to
Yeah.
my cherished opinions at faculty meetings, as they say, and and argue about curriculum. I don't know about that.
Mm.
Got a lot to do.
Get a lot to do. A
Yeah,
lot to
yeah.
do.
Well, I'm a huge fan of anything that's pay it forward or just random acts of kindness, and I love that. And one of the things you said, being a gracious recipient,
Mhm.
that's been a tough thing. I feel like sometimes people share even as simple as a compliment, and like, oh no, and like,
Yeah.
and I've learned if somebody's giving you the gift of a compliment, then you should accept it graciously, just like you would a wrapped gift, right?
Right.
A
Yeah.
present.
Right. As much for them. Robin, I agree.
I-
Hi, by the way.
Hi, Patty.
Hi.
I'll go to Portsmouth with you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, we'll have to find out his schedule and do that. And we'll bring some good music with us.
Oh, yeah.
To play
Nice.
in the pedicab.
I had to. I'd say that you remind me of a story of I had these just a few days ago. I had these two sisters who were I asked, the first one, would you like a pedicab ride? And she said, oh, no, I could never do that. And her sister goes, remember, it's yes day. And
Oh,
and she's like,
oh.
oh yeah. She goes, we are saying yes to things. We are
Oh.
and so they got in and we had this great conversation. They said that it's so hard for us to accept people doing things. They said, well, my mother was like that, we are like that, we grew up
Yeah.
like that. And she goes, and so we made today, we are not going to be that way. And we had this lovely time. We spent like an hour just touring around Portsmouth, and they were just laughing about how guilty they felt and how uncomfortable they felt, like having me like pedal them up hills. But I love that, and we talked a lot about how we have to be good at accepting gifts.
And accepting gifts.
Right.
And saying
why
yes
is
to things.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Why
No,
is it
go
hard for
ahead.
us to do that? Because it's such, just like Robin said, the first, oh, no, I did this because I wanted to. I mean, I know when I give things, I don't even expect to thank you. And if I get it, that serves me plenty, that's wonderful. But I think after this, I'll start to think about what the person is giving me, whether it's a compliment or it's a wrapped gift. And, and just I have to think of them. I think I shouldn't think of my discomfort in taking it, why is that? But I need to think about more. Maybe we all need, we need to think more about, don't strike down their joy in giving us something that, and like Robin says, let's be gracious in accepting it. But why are we like that? Are we nurtured and like that? I mean, it's kind of like what Leanne said. Now it's their culture in the Indian culture. And I think I've heard that before, that when they give you something, don't give anything back because it could be offensive or insulting to them.
Right.
So are we nurtured or natured to not take things?
Yeah.
And make us
That's a
feel
great
uncomfortable.
question, Patty. Yeah. Yeah.
I just wonder because, and people will do it. Now, here, I want you to have, no. Lisa, your mother and I, she'll do, no, Lisa, no, no, Patty, I want that. Linda, you can't give that to me. I know I can't take it. But we finally end up taking each other's, and then we feel that now the playing field is even, and then we start over.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe that's it, Patty, is that by taking something, you don't want to feel indebted to somebody. I mean, you were running into that.
Well,
kind
that's
of,
what the
right.
reciprocity theory would say.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I wonder if that's it, Patty, is that you don't want to get caught in to owing somebody something, and that kind of culturally, I don't know.
Well, and I think that there's
That's a
some
viable thought.
aspect of the deserving feeling.
Yes,
like,
I was thinking that earlier,
deserve,
Robin.
right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
somebody compliments, oh, I like your new haircut. Oh, it was just getting long and raggy and I needed to do something. Instead of saying, hey, thank you, I'm really happy with it, right?
Yeah.
We do that kind of thing all the time because do we deserve that
I
compliment?
think because culturally we
Yeah.
Right.
Linda,
And then,
do you
sorry, in going beyond that, that's where, we kind of strike down their compliment. So now
yes.
this really makes me much more aware of, they're saying this because they want to give us something.
Right.
So I think we need to be open, more open, and
to
we
receiving.
are to I think so. Yes, to receiving it and oh, thanks so much. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and because the day will come. It kind of evens out sometimes on other things. Someone does something for you and then you can do it later on, even if it's weeks down the road.
Right.
But it isn't a tit for tat, and it shouldn't be. But I think that's almost like how the thought that's put in our heads, or
yeah.
And so
it's true. That's
Linda, I see your hand up. I don't know if that's intentional or a mistake.
How do I, can you hear me?
You can.
Yeah, I can hear you. We can all hear you, Ma.
Oh, I didn't, I see I'm on mute. I don't know how to put my hand up. but I've been touching a lot of buttons.
Okay.
And maybe that's what it
That's
is.
probably, so did you have something you wanted to add or say, or,
Yeah.
or it was just a mistake?
Well, I don't remember what I was thinking. I know, like, I know Patty's given me a lot of, she bakes and cooks and
Oh, Linda, that's, oh, no.
I know.
Well, don't start that.
Don't
Okay.
start
but wait
that.
a minute. So, but you gave me some ideas about
Yeah.
the potatoes and the onions, and so
Well, right. And a lot of that, Linda, remember, and with Sandy, at COVID, it started with COVID, so we couldn't get together, but we'd all three be cooking in our own homes, and then we'd make, you usually make enough even for
Yes.
solo people, we make enough for 3 people. So, I'd call up and say, okay, I'm bringing over baked stuffed squash, and your mother would call and she'd say, okay, she was bringing over rhubarb bread, and then Sandy would come up with something. So it was kind of a sharing
Yeah.
of that kind of thing.
Right.
And funny now that I'm saying this is that it didn't feel like there was an obligatory debt to pay off, because we were all doing it, but we were doing it just to have some kind of contact with each
and
other, even if it
sociability.
was just through food
Right.
and nourishment.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking about this like I think a lot of you I know are familiar with UNH and Durham. So I live in the faculty neighborhood, if people know where that is, and it's basically a walkable to camp. And then there's the Sunnyside neighborhood, which I know some of you are also familiar with, which is about a half mile, quarter mile, half mile further out of town, and it's kind of there's a little section of busy road to get there, so it's not very walkable, but but usually people would drive from Sunnyside neighborhood to campus. And so someone did a study about like social capital development in these two neighborhoods. Socioeconomically, they're the same. They're basically like they sort of match each other in lots of ways.
Really?
But but the social capital is so much higher in the faculty neighborhood than it is in the Sunnyside neighborhood.
Interesting.
And the theory is that in the faculty neighborhood, people are walking more. They're bumping into their neighbors, kind of, and they kind of say
Fosters
hi to
that
each other, and
connection.
they have conversations sort of like more serendipitously than they do in the
other
neighborhood. And so to me, I think that that's like so the point of that to me is that I think that we have gotten, I think there's a comfort of like being able to be really independent. And so we have like we've moved to a place where we have our own cars, or like our little isolation booths that we can travel in, listen to listen to all these different stations. We don't even have to think about others. We can really disconnect, which I think it sometimes feels really good. And I think it feels really good to be independent, but then I think we lose a lot too in these connections that sometimes are more serendipitous. When we had to take a bus, or wait at the bus stop with people, or we would we would do a car share, or we had to sort of figure things out and solve problems together that brought us. And so I think even now, like, we don't even have like common television shows. Like, I remember like going to work on Friday morning and talking about Friends and Seinfeld or something with my coworkers, and now it's like,
Yeah.
We watch shows at all different times.
Yeah. There's so many things
we want,
right?
And would separate us a little bit, from these common experiences and from.
Absolutely. Mark, go ahead.
Oh, it's straight up to be frozen.
Are you frozen, Mark?
Oh, there he is.
I'm back. Yeah. Internet in the woods of Maine is just a really tricky thing. So I think one of the things that's kind of resonated with me about all this, Brent, is that the of course I get all my best information from John Tesh, like his little radio flips. What does he call it? education for your life or healthy tips for your life. I don't know what it is, but anyways, talking about sort of like when we're in a situation when we are giving, we're actually healthier. We actually are of a better mindset. And you know, something was said earlier about this idea of gratitude. And again, another John Tesh moment where he talks about the chemical release of hearing gratitude is actually equivalent to those receiving gratitude, or being
Yeah.
thanked. So,
Yeah.
so you know, as much as you want to say thank you, you also want to say you're welcome, right? It kind of completes the circle of that back and forth. But I think that, you know, if there could be, and somebody obviously much more learned than myself could figure out a way to sort of fold your whole health benefits into what you're trying to accomplish here, Brent, you know, because I think that it takes stress away. It helps people recognize how good things are around them. So the focus is on better things rather than the focus on, well, you know, yeah, I got a free coffee, but you know, they messed up the creamer, or I didn't get my
Right.
shot and a quarter of espresso as opposed to a shot and 3/8 of espresso, or whatever, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
So
right,
I don't know.
Mark. I think that
Huh?
right, the benefits of kind of that gratitude and the recognizing the good things rather than focusing on the bad is is really, it helps so many people get through hard times, and that was right, and that's right. This is the shift from you brought it right back there, Mark. You haven't been to one, but one would never know you hadn't, because that's often where I start, is kind of in, you know, in those tough times, kind of gratitude practices and stuff. But I knew that this was something just different and fun, but that it speaks to, you know, the gratitude and the and kind of positive thinking. I don't like that word, but kind of reframing things to find the good. So so thank you, Mark. Yeah, right. It has a huge health benefits. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, Nurse Robin here, and I know Nurse Patty would agree, and Linda, like the health benefits of having that mindset of gratitude and
Right.
of positivity, and it's not just the mental health, it's the physical health, it's everything. And
Right.
it's why I say yes when you put something up there like this, Lisa, you know, this opportunity to listen to a special project that has that positivity and that type of connection.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The value of it is way underestimated, and it would be
Yes.
great to see even more people on board.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I guess I go back to thinking about the women and the dancing, getting out, and like, I think that that's probably, I had a coherent thought, so this isn't coherent. It's just kind of the image of how much joy they brought and you brought to the streets of Portsmouth by simply having the music loud and being authentic and having fun and just kind of exuding that joy and fun. I mean, I think, and you do that when you're out there driving along. You bring that to the community when you're out there riding. So it's fun to watch.
yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
And you know, and then you see what little it took to get some people. And again, it's not everybody, but you know, that sidewalk's filled with all kinds of people. And what little it took, a little bit of music, and man, they just start hands in the air and jumping and popping, and you know, make it louder, keep going. You know, I mean, talk about a gift of spurring people on to have, you know, a really joyous moment, you know, and then that can be contagious. Yeah.
I have another sort of story about that, like not so much about joy, but like just service. And that one of the things that happened is I had I basically I was hiding sort of in this little nook in Portsmouth eating dinner. And while I was there, there was someone I think was having some mental health issues, a young man, I'd say like in his 30s or something like that. And on the corner, I don't know if someone saw this Facebook poster. I don't know box with all these, like, take a realty magazine, like houses for sale in Portsmouth, and opened up the box, and he kind of yelled out and picked it, and he grabbed a bunch of the magazines and threw them on the street. 300 magazines, and they kind of spread out. And I'm eating, and I just like, okay, I'm just going to observe this, on dinner. So that's like 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, I watched it. And cars kind of go by, they sort of go around this pile. People are walking back and forth in the street, and no, everyone's just kind of ignoring it. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting, right? And so then I have this metaphor that I love. It's called there's this guy Kurt Hahn. He talks about, in life we're basically, in life we're on a ship, and we're either passengers or we're crew. And so and his definition is that if you're a crew member, you kind of are always trying to help out, trying to figure out like how to get this boat to where it's supposed to go. If you're a passenger, you're like, am I happy? Am I getting enough? Is the food good? And the theory is that crew are much happier than passengers, even though passengers are trying to focus on their happiness. So anyway, I go out in the street. I have this thing like, all right, I'm crew. Come on, Brent. I look at this pile, and so I wait till the cars kind of pass by, it's clear, and I start picking these things up. And what happens next is that the next person that walks by comes out and helps. And she starts picking up, and there's this lovely young woman. I'm like, oh, thank you, And then the next two cars stop because we're kind of there, and they park their cars and they get out and they start helping. And in a matter of like 2 minutes, we
Have it all cleaned
up, put away, and everyone goes on. And I was just like, so anyways, there's this idea that if you've seen the video of the first follower, of that idea that you need like if someone starts a movement, the most important person is that first follower who kind of joins in. And I was just so heartened by that. It's like, oh, it just took a little bit of like walking in the street, and then it just happened, and people were happy to help. You know what I mean? I think the people walking by don't know what to do, and I think they were just like, like what, there's a pile of papers there, and they just kind of ignored it. But then once the helping started, I think we were all kind of like, hey, thank you, and like, all right, and we kind of
community.
It's almost like a high five of like, yeah, thanks for stopping in your car, and I don't know. Chasing dopamine. I think this is what I'm gonna call mine.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
You could have a new
That's
project, Brent.
a fascinating mindset. You've kind of come to that a couple of times of if one person says, okay, then other people join. I was having a conversation with some friends after golf one night, and I wanted to share something. And one of the women in the group, there were 4 of us at the table, immediately said, oh, I'm too old to learn anything. And it literally, the other 2 just looked at me like, oh, she said, no, I guess we're not going any further with this. It was just really fascinating dynamics. And I hadn't made that connection until you said it, that I really felt like the other 2 people wanted to hear me out.
Right.
But she made the decision of, oh, no, too old. And I was like, oh gosh.
Well, that takes us to a whole other topic of kind of growth mindset. We won't go there tonight because we don't have time.
Totally other side.
Right.
Totally agree.
Another Monday night. Yeah.
Another Monday night. Right.
And my gratitude was the fact that my mindset is strong enough to say, that's too bad. I feel bad for her because she was missing out on hearing something pretty cool.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, well.
Yeah. So I know Brent is heading to Boston to teach outdoor education stuff. So
Wilderness first aid tomorrow.
Wilderness first aid, yes. So anyways, so I want to kind of, does anybody else have any kind of questions or thoughts that they wanted to share before we kind of wrap things up?
I don't know. Mom, this is your chance to tell me you love me. I don't know.
I think that's Linda's nonverbal communication of she does, yeah. For chuckle. Yeah. Oh,
back.
Thank you, Beth. My wife.
Linda, that goes back to the 80s.
Thank you, Beth, for being here. And so thank you guys all for being here. This is being recorded. I will send it out for folks if they want to see it as well. And thank you guys for being here. Nice to see you, Mark and MJ. Haven't seen either of you in a little while. So, and
Yeah.
Leanne.
I
Leanne,
really-
we'll connect.
Yeah, I also want to thank, thank MJ, Mark, Leanne, like, longtime friends. Appreciate your support.
Let's have a reunion.
That's right.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
it's
June.
great to-
Good to see you
So the
guys.
last time I went. So, what was that, Mark?
Good to see you guys.
Good
Yeah.
to see you. Well, thank you
Yes.
all for being here. So Pedicab is still happening up in Portsmouth. You might not get Brent, but it's still
Well,
a really fun experience.
Do
So,
you just think though, like,
sounds
I
it.
don't know, that party that we were at probably our sophomore year, that like this was gonna happen? I don't know.
I don't
Not-
think we thought that far ahead.
Oh my God.
Oh, in my 50s, I'll be sitting at a computer with her and
I just want to know why the two of you still look exactly the same.
Yeah.
And Jay, you haven't changed either. Well, maybe a little bit.
Oh yeah, not yeah. From curly mullet to Mr. Clean.
Yeah.
trying to look like Mark Schrader. It's been my goal. But...
Yep.
Well, thank you guys. Nice to see you all, and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very
Bye.
Good
much.
night.
Thank you,
Bye.
Lisa. Thank you, Brent.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.